like me. Everybody's groaning, his blood's atoning. He rose to victory, he rose to victory. Well, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and he bought me with his redeeming blood. Before I knew him, the world refused him. He rose to victory, he rose to victory. Love in the grave he lay, waiting the coming day. Vainly they watched his bed, vainly they sealed the dead. Oh, they could not keep him breath. He tore them all away, and he rose to victory. He rose to victory. Well, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He saw me and he bought me with his redeeming blood. Before I knew him, the world refused him. He rose to victory, he rose to victory. Well, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He saw me and he bought me with his redeeming blood. Before I knew him, the world refused him, but he rose to victory, he rose to victory. Before I knew him, the world refused him, and he rose to victory, he rose to victory, he rose to victory.
Jumped the gun on me. I wasn't ready for the lights. Good morning and welcome to Stuttgart Harvest Church. Welcome to John Frazier, who is making his way down. See, I can call you out, John, because you love it. You don't mind. You're just like me. You're like, yeah. Good morning and welcome to Stuttgart Harvest Church. To those of you who are with us live in the worship theater this morning, good morning to you. Those of you who are watching us on either Facebook or YouTube, good morning to you guys as well. We are starting a brand new series this morning we're excited about. It's a 4-part series. We're just kind of coming off of an 8-week series called Begin Again, where, man, we just kind of work through the question, if we were to begin our faith again, our faith journey again, where would we begin? What adult questions would we ask? And we very rarely do an 8-week series, but man, it was good. We really enjoyed it. I'm excited about this series, though, our 4-part series that we're going to start working through this morning. Oh, I see. And it's going to be good. It's going to be good stuff. I do want to mention a few things before we get started. The first thing is tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., we are having our men's breakfast right here. It's going to be, I'm assuming we're going to be over in the 252 Theater again. Full breakfast. This is not bring your own breakfast. This is a full breakfast cooked by the man and the myth and the legend, David Lucy. If you know David, you know David can cook with the best of them. He's going to be here. He's going to be preparing breakfast. Man, come out 6 o'clock. We'll have some prayer time, a little quick devotional, and you'll have plenty of time to have a lot of food and then head to work tomorrow morning. So that's going to be tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We didn't do it in July because our time actually fell on the 4th of July. And so a lot of us were out of town, but man, we're back at it here for the month of August, so be a part of that. If you're watching online and maybe for some reason you're not able to come on Sundays, which is fine, but if you can make it out at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning, we'd love to see you at our men's prayer breakfast tomorrow, 6 o'clock. So that I need to mention. Also, you're going to notice, if you look around, we don't have a lot of students here, and you're going to also notice that several of our adult leaders are not here, and that's because we just wrapped up our back to school into summer student retreat, which they're actually our students here in Stuttgart. A lot of them, they are at the church in Malvern right now. They went to the church in Malvern this morning. We A bunch of us from Stuttgart. We met the student group from Malvern, the church in Malvern. We went to, had a student retreat in the mountains, in the Ouachita Mountains. Had a great time. Beth and I, we just got back last night about 11 o'clock because somebody had to be here to teach. Charlie's, of course, in Malvern, and man, we had a good time getting to bring Stuttgart and Malvern together. And they were a little apprehensive at first on Friday, but man, by Saturday, after we'd been at the, the river and all that stuff for a couple of hours, man, everybody really started getting together. So it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to do that, and I can't wait to do it again here in the future. So that is happening. The other thing that we talk about every single week, of course, is your worship envelope. When you came in, you might have been given one by my father-in-law, who is probably chilling around here somewhere. And but that worship envelope, inside of it, there's a couple of things, very important things, that we ask everyone to fill out, if you're willing. And the first thing that's inside of that worship envelope is the connection card. Our connection card is how you guys are communicating with us. It's how you're letting us know next steps, prayer requests, things going on in your life. It's how, at the end of the worship experience this morning, we'll talk about some next steps, and that's how you could potentially be a part of that. We're going to have a big next step next week, I think it's next week, that you'll be able to sign up for. But there's several ways you can fill a connection card out with us this morning, one of which is the paper version that you were given when you walked in, possibly. The other is on the screen, because Dustin is doing a great job replacing McKinley this morning, because McKinley was on student retreat. So he is in Malvern, but you can go to StuttgartHarvestChurch.com. At the very top of that page, you'll find a link to the online worship guide. That will take you directly to the connection card. We ask everyone who's worshiping with us this morning, whether here or worshiping online, to fill out a connection card if you're willing. If you've never done it before, you just give us the information you're comfortable giving. If you've done it every week for the last however many years, just put your name. Unless there's information to update, then let us know about that, new phone number, new email address, anything like that. If you're watching us online, obviously the digital version is the only way you can fill your connection card out. But I'm going to shut up because I feel like I've been talking for a really long time, probably way too fast. And so I'm going to be quiet. I think Taylor's going to turn the music up, and you can begin filling out the information part of your connection card right now. And then we'll talk about the other thing that is inside of the worship guide after that. And so the other thing that is inside of that worship envelope that you might have gotten is the giving envelope, or envelope, however you say that. My dad actually says envelope, which I think is so weird. But that's the other. If you're a guest here with us this morning, though, if you're a guest here at Stuttgart Harvest Church, that is not for you. We'd actually tell you to take that and put it aside, because it's not to make you feel any pressure to give. We certainly do not want to do that. It is simply there for the convenience and the benefit of those that came this morning prepared to worship through giving. That's all that's there for. If you're someone who did prepare or come this morning prepared to worship through giving, there's three ways you can give at Stuttgart Harvest Church. One, and really the best way is by going again to that online worship guide at StuttgartHarvestChurch.com, clicking that link and giving that way. That's really the best way. That's actually the way my family gives, I know, and Harley's family as well. The second option, you can give using our text option. You see the number on the screen. Just make sure you put an S there, because we want to make sure that we know that's coming from Stuttgart as opposed to, again, Malvern. We're talking about this as well in Malvern, maybe right now. Maybe having this very conversation right now. Scott Morris is talking about it. The third way, if you would prefer, is the envelope that was provided when you walked in. Just make sure, if you're comfortable, giving us the information on the front side of that envelope, because we want to make sure you get tax credit when that time rolls around, because all you're getting is a tax deduction. And so we want to make sure that you do receive that, and you do that by giving that information that's on the front side. So that's the way you can give here at Stuttgart Harvest Church. If you're watching us online, obviously digital options are the only way you can give. And if you're watching this later in the week, a lot of people that do that, you may not be able to catch us live, but you catch us later in the week. All of these options are still available. Don't worry about that. I think that is everything I need to mention. Oh, no, there is one more thing that I need to mention, and that is, of course, back to school is happening here in next Monday, I think, here in Stuttgart. I know Malvern goes back a week later, but here in Stuttgart, that's a week later. And so that means that a lot of our kiddos are going to be moving up potentially. We're going to have all of that move up when kids will move from maybe first look to 252 or 252 into the student ministry. That'll actually happen in September, first week in September. That's when all that takes place. So with all that being said, unless there's something I'm forgetting, anything? Am I good? What's that? Snow cones! Thank you, Mother. It's awesome. You're awesome. Snow cones. Hey, I'm excited about this. Tuesday afternoon, 5 o'clock. Tuesday from 5 to 6:30, we have a small group here at Stuttgart Harvest Church that's going to be giving away hot dogs and snow cones. We have our very own snow cone machine donated by, actually, Austin and Aaron Hayes donated this snow cone machine about 8 months ago. We're just now kind of getting it out. But they're going to be in Dee's lot, right? Is that right? Going to be right here? College Street. College and 9th and College is 7th. Somewhere in that vicinity is where you, but hey, take your kiddos by 5 to 6, get them a snow cone, bring their buddies, tell their buddies, you tell a friend, they tell a friend, that friend tells a friend. Next thing you know, they are going to be inundated with people, and y'all won't even be able to keep up. You'll have to go buy more ice, and that's what we're wanting. Back to school, we just want the community to know. We know going back to school, we are fired up about that for these kiddos. We know they've got a great year coming up, and we want them to know, A, we love them, and B, we're going to be praying for them all school year long. And we just, want to have an opportunity to give them a snow cone, maybe give some invite cards out, different things, hot dogs. But if you're watching online, 5 o'clock this Tuesday, and somewhere in the 9th and College area, you'll see a sign, I'm sure, something. It'll be obvious. And then Thursday, we're doing it again. We got another small group that's going to be doing the same thing on Thursday from 6 to 7:30, so a little bit later. They're actually going to be in my yard, so I know where that's at. 911 West 19th, right across. I think that's right. Right across the street from the Catholic school, right there, like 19th Prairie Street. Boom. Can't miss it. Going to be giving away snow cones. Are y'all doing hot dogs too, or just snow cones? So just snow cones at that one. And same deal. So come out on Tuesday at 5 at Dee's place. Come out Thursday at 6 at my place. Get you a snow cone on Tuesday and a hot dog. Just a snow cone on Thursday. But, man, let everybody know. If you're watching us online, if you just happen to see this, I'm actually going to go on the radio, make a big deal about it, Facebook Live. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun. Back to school, always an exciting time. It's when my family, I've got to wrap up this live welcome. It's when my family goes from being very feral in the summertime. You know, we're feral in the summertime. We may go to bed on time. We may get up. We never know. To actually having schedule, right, Beth? I don't know where Beth's at, but I'm excited about it. Tuesday and Thursday. Some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Y'all didn't say anything, but y'all know. Y'all are feral in the summertimes too. So with all that being said, we've got a lot going on here. I'm excited about it, but I'm very excited to pray for us and to jump into week number 1 of this series. So if you would, let's go to God in prayer. Father, I say excited a lot, but it's because I really am excited. It is not often that you just know that, man, you're involved and you're here and you're present and you're with us. That's the case because you said wherever 1 or 2 are gathered in my name, I'm going to be there. And we are here and we are gathered and we are gathered in your name. And we just want to see what you're going to do here for the next few minutes. So God, we just ask you to take everything we say, everything we do, your honor, your glory, nothing about us. And be with our technology and our guys running it kind of shorthanded this morning. So be with them. And then also in Malvern, our students, Stuttgart students, our Malvern students, Stuttgart parents, our Malvern parents. Just help us to have an amazing day as we are getting ready to jump into a brand new school year, brand new series. But you're still in control, and we're still giving it all to you. Thank you for your son and salvation. It is in his name we ask these things. Amen. Something about me that may surprise you. It may not surprise you, but it might surprise you. My default setting, kind of like my factory, preset, if you will, is to stay at arm's distance. I know, it's shocking, right? If I can disengage, I will. You know, if I'm not a big fan of really engaging or connecting too deeply. I'm pretty good with superficial connections. It's kind of my temperament. I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at making connections and making friends and getting to know people and being pretty outgoing. But man, if it starts to get too deep, you know, I'm probably looking for the exit. It's something that I know is an issue for me that I'm really working on. I talk about that with Beth and with Harley and with my family. We talk about that a lot, how I struggle with that. And I think some of you may be the same way, maybe not, but it's kind of like almost our unwillingness or maybe our inability to connect with other people in maybe a deep conversation, even with a friend or a family member, somebody very, very close to us. It kind of takes what seems to be a disconnectedness that we might feel to a whole different level. Because again, we really don't want to get too deep in the mess and you know, because it gets a little bit more difficult. To try to paint that picture a little bit better, let me give you this example. Next time, maybe today when you go leave here, if I get you out on time, which I'm going to do my best, when you go out and maybe eat lunch today, or if next time you're in a restaurant, just look around. Just look around at the restaurant, and what you're going to see is a lot of people sitting at a table, and what are you going to notice? What are you going to see is out for pretty much everybody at the table. Phones, right, thank you, phones. You're going to cell phones. You're going to see the smartphone out. And so you're going to see a lot of people at a table. You're assuming they're family members, they're very close friends, somebody that they would be, you know, want to have a meal with, at least, you know, share a table, but they're going to be probably disengaged from the people at the table. They're going to be on their phones. And I'm not pointing fingers, because I have done it too. That is something we battle in my house, is the cell phone. With both of my girls, you know, they think that they're supposed to have a cell phone, and it's really smart. And so we battle that as well. But you don't see a lot of communication. You don't see a lot of conversation. You don't see a lot of eye-to-eye contact. Not always, but again, it seems to be becoming more the rule and less of the exception, because our phones give us a distraction, you know? Your phone gives you a distraction from really having to be present in the moment, right? You don't have to be present. Because if we're being honest, being present, being completely present in a moment with another person is difficult. It's hard work, right? It's challenging. Phones really are an easy, and in our culture, almost acceptable distraction from having to really connect with people and really be engaged. October the 23rd, 2001, something was released. And for some of you, it's going to be like, what is that? For some of you, it's going to be, what is that? Because you're too young to know what I'm talking about. And some of you, you know, it really wasn't a thing for you because you were on past even that stage in your life. But in October of 2001, something was released, and it basically, you were able to put all of your music, your entire music library, in the palm of your hand. Remember what that was? iPod. Pod, not phone. There was a thing called an iPod, right? And you could have your entire music library in the palm of your hand. That was 2001. Like, after I graduated from high school. I was in college. I was a freshman in college when this thing came out. Apple released it. And the only way for you to listen to your music now with the iPod was how? In your ears, no one else's. It wasn't a speaker, right? It's not like you could sit around and, you know, listen to music with other people. Your earphones. Your earphones at the time, maybe, you know, AirPods now or whatever, but that was it. That was the only way to listen. And then we had another amazing advancement about 6 years later, June of 2007. What was it? The iPhone. Okay. This changes everything, right? Now, iPod and the cell phone and a little baby computer combined into one amazing apparatus. It's amazing. It changes everything. Harley tells a story about not long. He was in Boston, Massachusetts. We were talking about this on Monday. In Boston, Massachusetts, not long after the iPhone was released. He was in, again, he was in Boston. Millions of people in the city, you know, thousands of people just in a very small area. And he said even that quickly, after the release of the iPod and the iPhone, he noticed how people were like not really connected with one another. They were engrossed in their smartphone or in their iPod, earphones, you know, inserted. And you've got a city cram-packed full of people, but it seemed like everybody was almost isolated and alone. And this was, again, like, what is that, 14, 15 years ago, right after this technology was released. Because really, since the invention of the smartphone, the foundation of our culture has changed, right? You think about it like this. We live currently in 2022, we live in the most connected generation in all of history, the most connected generation in all of history. And yet, studies tell us we're also the loneliest generation in all of history. That's amazing to think about. I mean, you can talk to someone face to face, screen to screen, half a world away. And yet, studies are telling us that we're actually lonelier right now than we've ever been in human history in 2022. That's what studies are telling us. But, now I want to be careful about this series. Before we kind of go all in blaming the smartphone, because that's my tendency. It's like, this is the problem right here. Before we go in, blaming on that, we've got to be realistic about this, because this is really not a new problem. Loneliness, isolation, it's not new. It's just that the newest technology has kind of revealed and kind of pushed it to the surface. It's revealed a much more complex human condition that has existed for a very, very long time. Think about this. Right now in 2022, we have access to more health care. We have understanding more science and technology than we ever had, more medications, more ways to fight germs than at any point in human history. And yet, we have moved so many mountains, and even in the last 100 years, so many mountains have been moved. But yet, studies are kind of beginning to tell us that this generation is actually seeing a mortality rate higher than previous generations. Why is that? Why is it that in spite of all of that, all the advancements in technology and communications, why is it that the suicide rate is increasing today? In spite of advanced prevention, treatment, and post-vention efforts, suicide rate is exploding. The addiction crisis has not slowed down at all. In fact, it's not only is it not slowing down, in spite of all of the efforts and all of the resources that have been put into it, it's actually it's advancing. It's worse than it's ever been. I grew up in the world of Nancy Reagan. Just say no. That was the thing when I was in school. Just say no. Just say no. Just say no. And since then, man, it has just exploded in terms of the amount of resources and time and effort and everything that's been put into the addiction crisis, and yet it's not slowing down. Depression and anxiety are on the rise. They're not slowing down. Why is that? In spite of all of the advancements, all of the science, all of the medicine, all of that stuff. Cardiovascular disease is worse now than it has been in the last few decades. Cancer, it's not slowing down. Now, I don't want you to think that we're going to satisfactorily answer those questions in this series. We are not. I want to be very clear about that. But there are some answers to some of those questions as to why. Why is it that things are not getting better? Studies are actually revealing that loneliness is a factor. It's not the factor, a lot of factors, but it is a factor. It is a factor in the formula causing these outcomes. And here's one of the reasons why, because we are actually relational beings. We are relational beings who need eye-to-eye and face-to-face contact. I know that, you may push back on that a little bit because you're like, no, I don't want to be around people. I love the self-check at Walmart. I get it. I do too. But we're actually relational, face-to-face, eye-to-eye beings. We are relational beings who crave physical proximity on a regular basis. And again, you may push back on that, but stay with me. When we lose that, the ability to connect, the ability to see one another and be connected with one another and lean into one another, when we lose that, whether we lose it by choice or we lose it by circumstance, loneliness ensues. And then loneliness can bring with it a plethora of other connected issues because we're lonely. So for this series, because we're talking about loneliness, we wanted to kind of have a working definition of loneliness that we've drawn from a lot of sources. But I think this is going to be on the screen. This is kind of going to be our working definition of loneliness. Here it is. Loneliness is being cut off from parts of ourselves and from each other, not being really seen, heard, or noticed, leaving us with a deep sense of hopelessness. So loneliness is when you just feel like you're kind of cut off from parts of yourself. You're cut off from others, and as a result of that, I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, nobody's noticing me, nobody seems to care, and as a result of that, there's a sense of hopelessness that comes about. Loneliness is not the absence of relationship. That's isolation. That's not loneliness. And here's why we know that, because you can be lonely in a crowd of people. Very, very easy to be lonely in a crowd of people. You can be lonely in a very large family. You can be lonely in a church, a very big church. You can be very lonely sitting in a room just like this with hundreds of people around you. You can be very, very lonely. So in preparation for this series, we actually conducted our very own non-scientific, and I want to be clear about that, non-scientific survey on this topic of loneliness. Some of you took part in that. I had somebody this morning that we were in the lobby, and they said, "Is this the?" I was like, "Yeah, this is it. We're bringing it around. Here it is." And here's what was shocking. Our results from our non-scientific study were similar to what the scientific studies and surveys are telling us, what the national surveys are saying. Ours were similar. So here we go. In our non-scientific survey on loneliness, we found that and this was in the Stuttgart area and the Malvern area, both of these communities where our churches are planted. About 72%, so 3 out of 4, of the respondents to the survey said that they deal with some level of loneliness from time to time. 3 out of 4, 72%. About 47% of the respondents to our, again, non-scientific survey said that they deal with what they would define as serious loneliness. Now, that's staggering when you really think about it. 47%. That means when you walk the aisles of Walmart, right over there, every other person that you come into contact with, according to this, which is in line with what the national surveys are telling us, according to that, every other person would say they deal with serious loneliness. Depressive symptoms for high school boys and high school girls are very much on the rise. Depressive symptoms from 2012 to 2015. Girls, high school girls, depressive symptoms that they experienced, according, again, to studies, say increased by 50%. 2012 to 2015, 3-year period of time. I can't imagine what the post-COVID numbers are going to look like, Emotional health is hard enough. And then when you throw it into the backdrop of a culture, which we are now, that is kind of bent toward the superficial connection that we are offered screen to screen as opposed to face to face, when you kind of put all of that together, it's no wonder that we are kind of beginning to look at what could be construed as another epidemic, loneliness. Here's one way to look at it. I think this will be on the screen. Maybe this kind of is something that can help you visualize what we're talking about. Loneliness kind of a lot of times works like this. Emotions you feel, the emotions that you're dealing with, and maybe no one even knows about, they cause us to kind of go inside of our head, kind of withdraw from other people. It causes us to kind of, get away and kind of, those emotions kind of cut us off from other people. And so what happens is, naturally, loneliness follows. There's an element of loneliness that exists. And then that loneliness, in kind of this cycle, we're told, creates higher levels of depression and anxiety, which, of course, then causes more emotions to take place, right? And then which causes us again to and the next thing you know, you find yourself in a self-perpetuating cycle that just kind of goes on and on and on. And each time that rotation takes place, it seems to be a little worse. Kind of goes from there. So it's really, again, no wonder that we're looking at an epidemic of loneliness. It is impossible for me to describe with words the emotions and the feelings that come with truly, that 47% that would say, yeah, serious loneliness. It's impossible for me to use words to describe that, but we're going to try. So kind of bear with me, and I know this is kind of clunky, so just bear with me. But I want you to imagine, to try to maybe put yourself in the position of someone. Maybe you're not, you're maybe that 53%, or maybe you're even that 28%. I'm not good at math. That 28% that, is not even the 72% that said, a little bit every once in a while I feel lonely. Maybe you're the 28. And so you really can't relate as much to loneliness. Well, we're going to try to maybe put everybody into the seat of loneliness to a degree here. So imagine for a second that you are trapped in a giant, very, very deep tank of water. Imagine you're stuck in that tank of water, and you're treading water. You're treading water for like, days, weeks, months, maybe years. Treading water, man. You're doing everything you can to keep your head above the surface of the water. You're getting tired. You were exhausted. You were tired because you've been treading water for days, weeks, months, years. You don't know how much longer you're going to be able to go. And here's the worst part about the whole thing. You're trapped in this big old tank of water, and you're fighting, and you're struggling, and you're splashing. And you feel like no one's coming to help you. No one's coming to save you. No one is going to be there to reach out and say, come on, get out of this water. Let me get you out of here. Because no one actually knows you need help. Nobody knows you're struggling. So you're desperate. You're not going to make it. You begin to lose hope. I mean, I think you can imagine a feeling of hopelessness there. We could throw you out in the middle of an ocean, Pacific Ocean or something. But then imagine for a second you're trapped in this big old deep tank of water, struggling and splashing and trying to keep your head above the surface of the water. But here's the other thing. There are people outside of the tank, standing around the edges of the tank. You can see them. They are there. They are connected with other people. They're in relationships. They're happy. They're laughing. They're talking. They're happy. And they don't notice you. There you are. I mean, you can imagine that tank of water right there, but a lot bigger and a lot deeper. And there you are. And they're up there, and they're engaged with one another, and they don't see you. And you're struggling, and you're splashing. You don't really scream out for help because, after all, your struggle should be enough. It should be loud enough for them to notice that you're struggling and that you need some help. But instead of noticing you, instead of offering help, they just stay inside of their connections, and there you're watching them. Now imagine for a second, and again, we're just trying to conjure up the emotions of loneliness as best we can. It's very clunky, and I know that. But imagine for just a second that finally a couple of people outside of the tank of water, they notice you, they see you, they look at you, turn to you, no emotion in their face. They just kind of stare at you as you're struggling there, trying to keep your head above water, and they just watching you, kind of like watching a YouTube video or something on repeat. They look at you, they look at each other, they kind of smile. Back to what they were doing. They don't seem to give a rip as you wear out. You just slip below the surface of the water. I can't describe loneliness with words. It's impossible. Those of you that experience it or have experienced it, you would probably come up with a much better description than what I just gave. But the truth of the matter is, all of us have experienced loneliness on at least some levels. Maybe you had to go start a new school. Maybe your family moved and you had to go to a brand new school. You knew nobody. Or maybe, maybe church. Maybe you moved to a new town, or maybe you changed the church. Maybe you're sitting here right now for the very first time and you feel lonely because you don't know anybody and you're not connected to anybody. Maybe you started a new job. Something. Every one of us have had fleeting moments of loneliness from time to time. It's natural. Because bouts of loneliness are really a common spiritual condition. It's common. But when you get prolonged loneliness, that leads to serious disconnect. And it just seems like now more than ever in 2022 that we have kind of begun to lose the ability, because things atrophy if you don't use them, we've kind of lost the ability, or beginning to lose the ability, to connect to one another on a very deep, messy, soul-to-soul level. I don't want to acknowledge the person who's drowning in the big tank of water. And here's why. Because if I acknowledge it, now I'm involved. And it's messy. I don't want to be involved, right? Or even scarier than that. And really, this is terrifying if you really think about it. We've lost the ability to admit that we even need a deep connection. I mean, this is enough, right? This is enough. That's good enough. I don't need anything more than that. That's enough. We've kind of lost the ability to even say, yeah, I need those connections. We don't really look for them. We don't seek them out. And we're just content to struggle in our own personal tanks of water because it's just easier, simpler, because people are messy, man. Studies have confirmed we are a lonely society, more now than ever. And Scripture actually confirms that with loneliness comes isolation. With isolation comes death of our mind, our body, and our spirit. And this is where we really kind of want to turn the page a little bit in this series. It doesn't have to be that way. That doesn't have to be the way life goes. Now, I want to give you a disclaimer. We are not, in 1 week, going to answer all of your questions. We're not going to save you from loneliness in 1 week. It is not, that's not the way it works. In fact, this series is not going to save you from loneliness. What we want to do in this series, so I want to tell you, what are our purposes in this series? It is to see a path that we can make choices and decisions that will lead us to a specific destination that is a path out of disconnectedness, out of loneliness, where we can begin connecting again, engaging again. It's just a path. That's all it is. It's not an answer. It's not a, take this pill and you're going to be better. And as often is the case, loneliness and separation from God, it began in the garden. Take it all the way back to the garden. But what we're going to see is this. The loneliness that we experience today, and more so maybe than ever in 2022, the loneliness that we experience today, it's not the original design. This is not the way we were intended to live. I need to give you another disclaimer. Oftentimes when we talk about this type of subject or these types of subject, we often go to the first few chapters in the book of Genesis. And I know some of you are like, I'm kind of tired of going back to the first few chapters in the book of Genesis. But here's the reason that we have to do that sometimes, is because it answers so many of the fundamental questions that we have about why we feel the way we feel. Why do we respond? Why do we react? Why do we feel the way we feel? Our struggles, our pain, concern, it answers a lot of questions, and which is why we go back to those first few chapters in the book of Genesis. And even loneliness is in that list. It's on that category. So for a moment, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the original design. We're going to look at the way you and I were originally designed to experience life, experience humanity, experience one another, experience God, the original design. Because it does have implications for us today. It's a part of that, again, path. Think about this series as a path. Decision, 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 path, destination. That's where we're trying to go. This is a part of it. Now, 6 times, it's interesting because 6 times in the book of Genesis, the first few parts of the book of Genesis, 6 times we see the phrase, God said. We see it in Genesis chapter 1, verses 3, 6, 9, 14, 20, and 24. God said, 6 times. Now, I want to be clear. I cannot explain how that with the voice of God, He creates everything from nothing. I can't explain that. I'm not going to try to explain that. Pretty much once we go to in the beginning, God, I just kind of let it trail off from that point. Because God did it, I just don't know how it did it. I don't understand it completely. I know some things, but so I want to be clear. We're not talking about that. But 6 times God said, and with the voice of God, everything comes from nothing. And then another time, one more time in verse 26, we have it again. God says it again. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, and then God said, He said this. He says, let us make man, human beings, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. But this time when it says He said, God said, it's different. If you'll notice, it's different. With these words, He simply states an intention, a plan, if you will. This is what we're about to do. Doesn't actually do it. Every other time it's been creation, but this time it's different. That's going to come next in verse 27, where it says, so God created human beings in His own image. In the image of God, He created them, male and female. He created them. Now, I don't want you to miss this, because this is significant, I think. This time, though, He doesn't just speak it. That's how all other creation was done. Up to this point, it was just kind of voice of God, done deal. Check, 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 check. Done. This time it's different. This creation is different. This is more than words. This is up close. We're about to get personal here. God's about to get intimate with His creation. Different. It's actually described for us a couple of verses later in chapter 2, where we're told that the Lord God formed the man. This is different. All other creation, it's just He said, He said, He said. Here we're told that He formed the man. He didn't just make it happen. We have a different word. The word form here, actually, you see it on your screen. It's this word, our word, English word form, it's actually this word yatsar. And that word that's used, that was chosen, that God made sure was included, it indicates to form, to fashion, and you might think of it like a creator forming pottery, a potter creating a vessel. That's kind of the meaning of the word in the original in the original text. He fashions this creation. He forms this creation to a very precise specification, like a potter. There's intimacy that is implied with this creation. It's not just simply, he said, it was. He forms it. He takes a little extra time. God reaches down and he gets his hands dirty in the mud as he's forming us, according to the first few chapters in the book of Genesis, from the dust of the ground. Okay. This is done with a ton of intentionality. It's not an accident, you know. There's apparently an additional level of value that is placed on this creation. I mean, gathered up and touched by the hands of God. This is different. This is intimate. This is up close. This is personal. This is face to face, man. This is different. And then what he formed, according to Genesis 2:7, what he formed, it was by his own design. It was by his own design. And the blueprints of that design, apparently, at least according to verse 27 in chapter 1, the blueprints of the design were himself. So, again, if it's possible to think of this picture in your mind, we have this formed vessel, right? Again, think about a potter forming a vessel. We have this vessel. We have this thing. We have an item. We have a container that's been formed. Yatsar, it's been formed. We have this new life. But apparently, at least by the eventual goal, where we eventually want this creation to get to, apparently, it's lifeless. Now, again, I don't know how he did it. And anyone that will walk up to you and say, well, I know exactly how he did it. I don't know how he did it particularly, how God does what he does, but I mean, maybe this lifeless form as it was defined, maybe it has a beating heart. I don't know. Maybe it has all of the pieces physiologically that you and I have today. Maybe there's a brain and there's skin and there's muscles, there's tendons, there's ligaments, there's lungs, there's a liver, there's an appendix. I don't know why. No one does apparently. But we have this formed vessel, but apparently, at least according to what it will eventually become, it is lifeless in comparison to all other creation. It's lifeless. Apparently, this vessel doesn't have whatever it needs to have to make it different from everything else, all the rest of the animals. It doesn't have it yet until we're told he, God, breathed the breath of life into the man's nostrils. Now this creation, it's been brought to life in a very special, unique, one-of-a-kind way. No other creation got this. Different. God actually looks into the face of Adam. And again, we're just trying to paint a picture here. God looks into the face of Adam and he breathes a very special kind of life into him. Different. He does it intentionally, up close, on purpose, personal, intimate. Think about like CPR rescue breathing, you know. God does something to transfer a part of himself into this vessel. And as a result, we're told that the man became a living person from God into humankind. Think about the implications. That word living, it's actually used 5 times in this process. Living creature, living soul, living person. But again, it's different this time. I don't want you to miss that. It's different. Because this container, this, formed container, yatsar, this formed vessel, it's filled with something that no other created thing has. The actual breath of God. The human soul. The human soul is imparted directly from God to this man. It's the beautiful aftermath of God breathing into Adam. Now consider this. Consider this. You and I still have that breath today. The human soul. I was actually thinking about that earlier this week. The human soul. Explain the human soul. Well, we actually still have that. We're different. There's something special. There's something different going on here. We're actually born with the very breath of God that was first imparted into this vessel, Adam, to make him a living, eternal soul. We're not an afterthought. We're not molded after some random idea or random thing. We're told that God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created. Now, the Hebrew words, this is so interesting. The Hebrew words that are actually used in this creation process right here, they actually paint a pretty interesting picture. There's, again, implication to it. The words actually kind of paint the picture of a mirror-like representation. You think about a mirror-like representation. Something like this creation, which was different from all other creation, special from all other creation, this creation is almost like a scaled-down model prototype. That's, again, what the Hebrew words kind of indicate. There's an implication to it. It's not the actual thing. It's more like a scaled-down version of the blueprint, the model. It's a scaled-down version of it. Not a simple wink of resemblance, like maybe, I'm not sure. But it was an exact scaled-down model from which it has been drawn, molded, created from the original blueprint. That's what the Hebrew words imply. That's what the Hebrew words mean. Humans, this human creation, you and I eventually, as we're going to see here in just a second, we actually reflect the triune nature of God. Let us make man in our image. God the Father, the Son, the Spirit, intentionally choosing to mold us, to make us, to form us into his image and spiritual likeness. And then breathing his breath into us, giving us life eternally. Say all of that to say this. That's the original design. That's how it was originally done. That's the intention. That's the implications of all of that, the intimacy of all of that. That's the original design. It's a design of intimate connection with God from the very beginning. By his design, that's what he wanted. Community with God from the very start. Up close, personal, face to face. Attachment to God, if you will. Meaning that you and I were created for a very specific purpose. We were created for the purpose of having a relationship with God. It was true of Adam, it was true of Eve, it's true of you, and it's true of me. That's his design. You think about, why did God create the universe? Why did he do that? Why did he create the universe and the planets and the suns that we call stars? And why the plants? Why did God create the platypus? You know what I mean? Why did God decide that I need to create that? As best we can understand, it's because it pleased him. He wanted to. But why did he create you and me? Why did he create Adam and Eve, and as a result of something we're going to see in just a moment, us? Why? Why create humanity? Why create an element of different from everything else? He didn't need me. Why did he create us? Hey, I'm cool now. I'm a cool dude. He don't need me. But apparently God wanted to step into a relationship with his creation. Apparently he wanted to have a relationship with an element of his creation. So he created Adam. Didn't stop there. That one wasn't the goal. One relationship wasn't enough. Because he told Adam, he said, now I want you to go be fruitful, multiply, increase in number, fill the earth. And they did. And here we are. And he wants a relationship with us too. That's why. God desired to dwell with his creation in a way that he wasn't going to dwell with any other element of his creation. It's the reason he took those extra steps. So he could dwell with you and he could dwell with me. You and I are designed to dwell with God. And here's the interesting thing. Here's the important thing. Dwelling takes time. Specifically, if you think about it, dwelling takes an eternity. That's his plan. That's the purpose. That's the original design. Now, this is huge. I don't want you to miss this. Dwelling with God, which is what he intended, it doesn't imply, or it doesn't, kind of lead one to think about an occasional hangout time. I'm going to hang out with my buddies. I'm going to hang out with my girlfriend, whatever. It doesn't imply an occasional hangout time. Dwelling doesn't imply when I'm not busy and he's not busy, we can connect. When we're not too busy to connect and engage with one another. He created us to dwell with him, and dwelling always takes time. That's the plan. But you say, well, how long? Okay, cool. I'm supposed to dwell with God. Supposed to be connected and engaged and in a relationship with the Creator God. That right there is enough to make your mind, but that's what I'm supposed to do. Okay. We're going to spend some time together, God. How much time? How much time did you create me to dwell with you? With this very special creation. Now, this is staggering if you think about it. How much time did God set his special creation aside to dwell with him and to be in a relationship with him? It starts with an E, and it ends in eternity. Eternity. Forever. Never ends. We are eternal creations. Dwelling's not a sprint with God. I try to make it a sprint. I try to make it okay, it's Tuesday at 5 o'clock. I got a little bit of time. All right, God, let's talk. I do that, but it's not a sprint. Put it in the context that we can relate to. It's millimeters a day. It's moment by moment. Moment by moment. Being fully present with God all day long. Moment by moment. And here's another thing that you know about dwelling, because you know this about every other relationship that you have in your life, human to human. Dwelling is not a sitting still thing. Work is required. You got to work to dwell in a relationship with somebody. I don't care if that somebody's your mama or your wife, your boyfriend, your buddy, your baseball coach. It's got to take some time if you're going to dwell in a relationship, or if it's God. You know this in your everyday human relationships. You know this. You experience this every day. I want you to think about it like this. I think this is an interesting picture. Everyone probably knows about the Renaissance sculptor, master Michelangelo. Not the turtle. Not the turtle. Thank you, Ben. But the actual Renaissance painter, sculptor, Sistine Chapel, the whole nine. Michelangelo. Now, I want you to imagine Michelangelo standing in front of a giant block of marble. You know, he's got hammer in one hand, chisel in the other. 10 minutes into the process, you're watching the master create a masterpiece. 10 minutes into the process, here's what I'm doing. Hey, Michelangelo. Done yet? What's it going to be? Mike, can you give me a clue as to what it is you're doing? What would he say? He'd say, just wait. Wait and see. Wait and see. You're going to see. Just wait and see. An hour in, I'm like, Mike, hey, listen. You're going to have to give me something. I'm not seeing anything. I mean, all I see is a giant block of marble, and I see you working on it, but I don't see what's happening. Wait and see. Just, Cole, wait and see. Wait and see. Take your time. Michelangelo, you mind if I go get a cup of coffee? Well, in my case, it wouldn't be coffee. It'd be Coke or something, Diet Mountain Dew. Dr. Pepper Zero. That's kind of my thing right now. Mike, can I just go get a Dr. Pepper Zero? I'm a little bored. I got things to do. I got to run some errands. Got to pick up the kids from school, drop them off at soccer practice, have supper ready by 6 o'clock, get in bed by 9. Life busy. Can you give me an idea what it is we're doing while we're doing it? I got to run some errands. I'll be back later. How long is this going to take? I want what I want, and I want it now. I want to see it now. I want to see the end result now. But see, you know this, in this analogy, beauty in the hands of a master sculptor, it takes what? It takes time. That's the way it is. And beauty in a relationship with God, it requires time. It requires a continued presence while we are at the same time present. That's dwelling. That ain't something we're good at. Not something I'm good at. I want to have that deep, connected, engaged relationship with the Creator God, but I want to do it on my time frame, I want to do it in the amount of time I have available. God says, I know you want it all, and I know you want it all, and I know you got plenty of distractions, but you're just going to have to dwell with me. You're just going to have to dwell with me, and it takes time to dwell. Just wait and see. Stay connected. After all, we've got an eternity. We have plenty of distractions that are available. So it takes a lot of work to just dwell with God, to be present in a relationship with God, while He, blow by blow, chisels and removes a little bit here and a little bit there, creating that masterpiece. So all of that to say this. Would you like to have a close, intimate relationship with the Creator? And here's what I know. One of two things The fact that you are here this morning or you are connecting with us online, whether live or later in the week, that means one of two things. It means either one, you were dragged here, or somebody has been begging you, please come to church with me, please come to church. And you finally were like, fine, I will do it to shut you up, but I'm never coming back. That may be why you're here and why you're connecting online. And so, hey, I'm glad we got to see you once. That's awesome. Or the answer to the question, do you want a close, intimate relationship with the Creator God, is yes, I do. That's why I'm here. Okay. You're not going to get it in a microwave. You're not going to pop it in there for 3 minutes and have a delicious bowl of ramen noodles. It's not the way it works. It takes time. It's a process. And that's one thing you and I really do have. We have access to an eternity. Oh. Now I see. That's the way we were meant to live. That's the original design. Not in isolation. Not in loneliness. Adam had a perfect dwelling relationship with the Creator. Would it not make sense that ever since the fall, would it not make sense that we as humans, followers of the original prototype, would it not make sense that we're doing everything we can to find a way back into that relationship with the Creator? Doing everything we can. Perfection was thwarted in the garden. We know that when Adam and Eve sinned. Ever since then, humans have been desperately searching for connection, desperately searching for engagement, desperately searching for a way out of loneliness. Because that's the way you were meant to live, and I was meant to live, connected to the Creator. That's how He designed us. So the question is this: are you lonely? Are you lonely? Okay. We got a lot we're going to talk about in this series, but here's the first step. Here's step one. Remember, so we're path, decision, step, eventual destination. If you are someone that's really struggling with loneliness, maybe you're part of the 72% or the 47%, or maybe you're part of the 28% that just didn't want to be honest. If you're struggling with loneliness, the first step, the most important step, is dwelling in a relationship with the Creator God. That is step one. Is it the only step? No. Just dwell. Day by day, moment by moment, being present in His presence. Not the only step. We're just getting started. But we want to keep the first things first. That's a big deal for us here at Stuttgart Harvest Church, keeping the first things first, the most important things first. That's where the journey out of loneliness begins. That's where it begins. It's not where it ends. Because if we stopped right there, if we just stopped with relationship, me and God and me, and I'm good, and I'm dwelling with Him, and I'm connected with Him, and I got God, and He's got me, God is my wingman, Top Gun. Me and God, God's goose. That's not sacrilegious. I hope you didn't get offended by that. That might have been too far. But if that's the only connection, the only relationship we have, you're still going to be lonely because you were created for more than that. But that's step one. That's the first things first. See, at Stuttgart Harvest Church, we actually have an ultimate core value that supports this concept of dwelling with God, and it's called worship. We call it worship. So here in just a minute, we're going to have an opportunity to worship God in the traditional sense. 10:30 to 12 o'clock, church, student group, small group, yada, yada, yada. It's church. That's when we worship. We're going to have the opportunity to do that, and I cannot encourage you enough. Please, 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 worship. You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to. If you want to, that's cool. You don't even have to sing if you don't want to. There's not a specific defined way to worship. But we're going to have the opportunity collectively as a group to worship, that's number one on our core values. But we don't want you to stop there. This is where we're getting into the next step this week. Because worship's more than that. Dwelling takes time. Dwelling's a process of being constantly present and in His presence, right? So this week, we want to encourage you to worship in every decision you make, every contact that you have, every conversation that you have. Everything you do is worship. The only question is who or what are you worshiping? That's dwelling with God. In fact, this week, we have a very practical next step. We're going to have a couple of guys in the back at the door. I think it's going to be Brother Dale and Brother Rick, a couple of our vision partners. They're going to be standing in the back. We know that this morning and some of this series could be construed as a little bit impractical. It's a little bit spiritual. It's a little bit existential. We know that. So we want to have a really, really practical next step this week. And here's what it is. When you leave this morning, Brother Dale and Brother Rick will be standing back there, and they're going, I wish I'd have brought one up here. That was a mistake. They're going to have a wooden medallion, like a coin, and on the front it's going to say Stuttgart Harvest Church, the church in Malvern. It's going to have our core elements. And what we want you to do, every person worshiping with us this morning, get one of those and keep it all series long. Put it in your pocket, keep it in your hand, somewhere where when you touch it, when you feel it, it reminds you, worship, dwelling. Throughout this series, starting this week, carry the coin with you. And every time you see it, every time you touch it, every time that you think about it, worship. Worship is everything you say and everything you do. The only question is, who or what are you worshiping? And right now, we're fixing to worship the Creator. That is step one out of loneliness. Dwelling with our Creator. God, we come to you now thanking you so much that you did create a way out of loneliness. God, you did. You set this thing up from the very beginning, and we have been fighting and scratching and clawing and kicking and splashing inside of that deep tank trying to get back into that relationship and that connection with you. But God, it takes time. It takes work. It's not a microwave. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen coming to church one time. It's not even going to happen just coming to church. It is a process that is a day by day, moment by moment, present in your presence. So God, we just ask that we'll take these coins, we'll take these ideas, we'll take everything that we've talked about. God, give us the wisdom to understand what to do and give us the courage to do it. And it's in your name we ask these things. Amen.
One day when sin was as black as could be, Jesus came forth to be born of a virgin, dwelt among men, my example is he. Word became flesh and the light shined among us, his glory revealed. Living he loved me, dying he saved me, buried he carried my sins far away, rising he justified freely forever. One day he's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day. One day they led him up Calvary's mountain. One day they nailed him to die on a tree. Suffering anguish, despised and rejected, bearing our sins, my Redeemer is he. Hands that heal nations stretched out on a tree, and he took the nails for me. Living he loved me, dying he saved me, buried he carried my sins far away, rising he justified freely forever. One day he's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day. One day the grave could conceal him no longer. One day the stone rolled away from the door. Then he arose, over death he had conquered. Now he's ascended, my Lord evermore. Death could not hold him, the grave could not keep him from rising again. know there's still a hope for you now. No matter what you've done, you can't erase His love. Nothing can change it. You're not separated, no matter what. Never been a better time to get honest. There's never been a better time to get clean. So come as you are, run to the cross and be free. No matter what you've done, you can erase His love. Nothing can change it. You're not separated, no matter where you run. He's always holding on. You're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what. Don't know what you've been taught, don't know what you've been told. No is my God, He'll never let go. No matter where you run, He's always holding on. You're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what. Oh, you're still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter what.
Thank you guys so much for worshiping with us this morning. Don't forget, when you walk out, grab one of those medallions. I do want to say this, and this was something we wanted to make sure that we mentioned at the end. We are not, and never will be, professionals in the area of counseling or anything along those lines. So what we do want to say, and to those of you watching us online, we want to let you know that if you are struggling, if you would say, man, I am just having a really, really hard time, if you would reach out to us during the week, we would get you in touch with someone, can give you some help, some professional help, some help that, again, that's just beyond our pay grade. And but what we're talking about, again, is just kind of that path in that direction, and that may be a step on the path for you. So we do want you to know, if you are needing some more professional assistance in that area, please let us know, and we'll get you in touch with kind of the resources that we use. But we would be happy to do that. So that's week 1, week 2 coming up. I'm excited where we're going to go, continue to go in this series. Don't forget, Monday, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock right over there, breakfast, snow cones, hot dogs, all that good stuff. Don't forget about that. We're going to be doing a lot this week, back to school happening. So, all right, with that all being said, we're done, right? That's it. We got it? Good? Okay, I'm going to pray. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you again for wanting that relationship, deciding that you wanted a creation that you could be in a relationship with and you could connect with, engage with. And God, just help us day by day, moment by moment, to continue being present with you, staying in your presence. Everything we do, worship, not just what we do here on Sunday morning, as great as it is, not just what we do on Sunday mornings, all week long, Monday through Saturday, Sunday afternoons. Everything we say, everything we do, it's worship. The only question is what?